I'm Aaron Ellis, and welcome to Epic Insights with Ovationz, a Nobody Studios portfolio company. This is the show where we bring you exclusive conversations with world-class experts, advisors, and top talent making waves and shaping the future of business. Whether you're a business leader, entrepreneur, or just passionate about personal and professional growth, you're in for some game-changing insights. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Epic Insights with Ovationz. I'm your host, Aaron Ellis. Today, I'm joined with Sean Swarner. Now, Sean is a keynote speaker, an author, a consultant, a coach, and an adventurer. He's the only person in history to climb both poles of Mount Everest, do the Hawaiian Ironman, and accomplished all this and other things, by the way, we'll get into, after surviving terminal cancer twice, a 14-day prognosis, and a year-long coma, and only with one lung. So think about that when you're climbing, when you're just walking through your day, let alone climbing a mountain. So as a multiple world record holder, voted top 8 most inspirational people in history, Sean has been featured on ESPN, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, CNN. Needless to say, Sean is a true empowerment leader. Sean, welcome to the show.
I appreciate that, man. I know it's tough to say that people always ask, well, what do you do? It's like, well, depends on what you do. It depends on what you want to hear. I mean,
exactly right. I was like, man, there's so much to capture here. I got to whittle this down a little bit. But man, you're extremely accomplished. I have some other thoughts that I want to unpack with that I think will be extremely important for people to hear. But let's start with the short version of your story. What brought you to what you're doing today?
Appreciate that. Long story short, between the years of 13 to 18, 19 years old. So basically the developmental years of my life, I was smacked in the face with 2 terminal cancers. I was given 3 months to live when I was 13 years old. Then I was given 14 days to live when I was 16 years old. I was in a medically induced coma for a year of my life. I was read my last rites. The hospital wanted to put me in hospice. And I remember I was laying in the hospital bed with the second cancer, and a man of the cloth comes in, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, read me my last rites. And I'm looking at my mom and my dad. I have a brother who's 3 years younger than I am. And I remember looking at my parents because the hospital wanted me to write out a living will. And I'm like, well, isn't my brother going to get my hand-me-downs anyhow? Like, what's the hospital want? So that actually developed the mindset that I have to go on and accomplish different things. Like, for example, let's just say when you were in the 8th grade or a freshman in high school, what were your biggest fears?
That's really interesting for me because I have never had any physical fears. And I dropped out of high school to tour the world as a musician when I was 16. So I can't even remember.
Well, for the majority of people,
yeah,
they're freaking out. Like, where am I going to sit for lunch? They're worried about girl. They're focused. I mean, imagine you're now 70 pounds overweight on the bottom of the shower floor. Your hair's falling out in chunks because of the chemotherapy. The water's filling up because your hair's clogging the drain. And you're on your hands and knees weeping and sobbing, knowing that you either have to fight for your life or give up and die.
I had no idea this was in your teenage years either. That's intense.
Yeah. So when people are out, their hormones are kicking in, they're growing hair in unusual places on their bodies, their voices are cracking. I was literally losing my hair. I was losing my friends. I was losing everything, but I was developing a different perspective and a different mindset on what was truly important in valuing my own personal core values. I was more worried about myself than I was others.
Wow. It's honestly insane that happened. I always see the beauty in the pain and the gifts in these kind of things. And I just had this thought, like, what an amazing gift to have this transformational time in your life in the most developmental part of your life, where people are trying to figure out who they are. You were met with so much adversity, right? Like, it's almost like, to me, I can see it as like it really was planned and it set you up to what you're doing today. You had to go through that to be able to do what you're doing today. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. People ask me all the time, like, well, where would you be and what would you be doing if you didn't have cancer? I have no idea. You look at life kind of like a tree, for the first X number of years when you're a kid, your parents are making decisions for you. So that becomes the base of the tree. Like there's no branches. And then all of a sudden you start branching out into your own life. You start making decisions. Though each one of those branches lead to another decision, another decision. I'm way over on one side of the tree when I could have been who knows? Like I could have been an Olympic athlete or a janitor. Who knows?
Wow. So I want you to share on something. I think it's it's synchronistic, or it's interesting the way I always say something when I'm coaching, and you've climbed mountains and I haven't. So I always say you can't go from base camp to the summit when I'm teaching people about embracing the journey, right? And that every single step is success. And I call it, there's a virus that has been, embedded in us called destination thinking that makes us devalue, right? And we were talking about even motivation versus inspiration. And this ties into that too, because I teach the fact that motivation is when you grab hold of an idea and through hell or high water, you're going to carry through that idea to completion, where inspiration is something gets a hold of you and carries you through to inspiration, right? So I think it's interesting that I always say, I use the example, you can't go from base camp to the summit. And now I'm speaking to someone who's done that multiple times. So can you speak towards how you help others understand that it's truly the way you put it, you're awakening the human spirit one decision and one step at a time?
It's interesting you mentioned that, because a lot of people have no idea what it really takes to climb Everest.
Yeah.
So for example, I got to base camp, 17,600 feet, right? On April 8th. I summited May 16th.
Wow.
So we're talking almost a month and a half.
Yeah.
Right? Living in a tent. There's no running water there. You have to shower out of a bucket. There are no toilets there. You have to do your business in other things. And I was sleeping in a tent on a glacier that's moving 4 feet a day. So every day I wake up, I'm literally 4 feet further from my goal.
Wow.
You multiply 4 times, however many days that was, that's a long distance. But in my mind's eye, I knew I was already on top. I'm a firm believer in the mind-body connection and vivid visualization, not just visualization, vivid visualization, utilizing my senses of smelling the ozone on the top, feeling the radiation of the sun on my face, hearing the snow of sounding like styrofoam crunching under my feet while I'm making it to the top. And I also had a much deeper purpose getting to the top. It wasn't just for me, because, as you mentioned, I climbed Everest, the highest mountain on every continent, one rung. I have never made it to the summit of any significant mountain by myself. I've always had people there.
Yeah.
And going back to your question, not everyone's going to climb Everest, but everyone has an Everest to climb.
Yeah.
And if you're going up the mountain and you have a deeper purpose for the summit, as opposed to, I just want to double my salary. Well, that's great. You're going to double your problems. I know so many people, a handful of multi-billionaires who have been married 4 or 5 times. Their children hate them.
Yeah.
On the outside, they have everything. It's because they haven't worked on themselves. They haven't stopped and taken that proverbial look in the mirror and done the hard work.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to be truly fulfilled. So you have to have a deeper purpose for the goal. And for me, it was when I got to the summit, I actually took out a flag that I had in my chest pocket the whole time up there as a constant reminder of my motivation. And on that flag had names of people touched by cancer. Being the first cancer survivor on top of Mount Everest and the first cancer survivor to do all these other things, that was a deeper purpose, to give people hope.
Yeah.
To give something back and use the highest mountain in the world as a platform to give hope, to help other people and scream from the top of the world that more is possible. But every step of the way, I told myself, the higher I go, the stronger I get. So with my right foot, the higher I go, left foot, the stronger I get. It was a mantra I developed that I learned when I was in that shower as a 13-year-old boy who was 70 pounds overweight. I remember that I wasn't focused on not dying. I was focused on living. How many people get into business thinking, I don't want to lose money.
Yeah.
You're walking down the street. You're telling yourself, don't trip, don't trip. You're going to fall on your face, man. Stand tall, walk strong. So what I learned going through the cancers, I didn't want to focus on not dying. I wanted to focus on living. Going back to the mountain. The higher I go, the stronger I get. I knew I was going to make it. I wasn't focused on not failing. I was focused on making it to the top. And so many people put their energy and attention on the avoidance of what they don't, as opposed to focusing on what they do want.
You're preaching to the choir. That is so, like, I get asked to talk about manifestation all the time. And I talk about how I have a statement. I say, when you can ask for what you want, visualize what you want, act on what you want without the backdrop of what you don't want, you'll have it.
There you go.
Like, what do you mean? And I have people really examine that most of how they're showing up and flowing through their actions, and even what they say, their actions may appear positive. They might sound positive. Their thoughts might even sound positive, but they're rooted in and they're flowing from what they want to avoid. They're flowing from avoidance. And whatever you focus on, you're going to continue to recreate. And so when people can have that connection where it's like, oh, I'm focused on what I don't want, so at best, I'm going to recreate situations to not want things a little bit more, right? To really do that. And I think it's amazing that you just said that, because it's so important that people grasp this. And it's one of the main things that when somebody really gets it and it opens up, I see a lot of movement, a lot of change in them.
Absolutely. I mean, and it stems, honestly, I think it stems from when you're a child, say 2 years, a year old to 19 years old. How many times, and people who have children, please listen, how many times have you said, no, you can't do that. You're not strong enough. Now, hold on, be careful. Don't get hurt. Get out of that tree. You're going to fall and break a leg. As opposed to the encouraging aspect of, hey, hold on tighter, or hey, do this a different way. It's in our subconscious and we don't even realize it. And it rears its ugly head every time we're presented with a choice or a decision. It's like, oh, should I do that? Absolute. Well, maybe not.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up. I just a personal example I love to share when we talk about this subject. When it comes to parents, like, kids don't do what we tell them to do. They do what they see us doing. And I firmly believe, or my definition of integrity, of congruency, or of inner peace, honestly, is when what you do and what you say and what you think are speaking the same message to the world. And before my daughter was born, I was speaking to her in the womb saying, I'm going to cultivate your creativity. I'm going to, help you with your imagination. I'll never clip your wings, all that kind of stuff. Right. Yet I realized when she was about 3 years old, I wasn't pursuing music at all anymore. So the first time she saw me in the studio, I have a photo of the way she looked at me. I knew right then and there I was in integrity with my daughter for the first time, because I was saying things to her, but I wasn't doing it and I wasn't thinking it. Right. And she's like, both my children are really, really advanced and proactive and dreamers and really accomplished. And it's really kind of cool. But I love that you brought that up. It's so vital. And I know I want to figure out how we can help simplify this now, because I know you've gone through a lot of things. I've gone through my own versions of some craziness in my life just because of my, into entertainment career and everything. But how can we help people understand that just because our mountains might have been bigger, that in essence, everybody's mountain is big. You know what I mean? It's from their perception, right? And how can we help them understand that it doesn't matter the size? Don't get caught up in, well, he climbed Mount Everest and after cancer, I can't even climb a hill. You know what I mean? How do you address that when people actually go to the self-loathing and justification that because they haven't done as much, then why they try?
Great question. And my first goal literally was to crawl 8 feet from the hospital bed to the bathroom. That was my first goal. I was 17, 18 years old. I was sick and tired of projectile vomiting on myself and soiling the sheets. Wow. Because the medicine that was pumped through my body, no one's ever had these 2 cancers before. I still go in once a year for an annual checkup because they don't know what's going to happen, right? So I see it as another year to live. And I just got my blood work back last week, got the thumbs up. So I'm good, got another year to live, right? Awesome. But my first goal was to crawl 8 feet from the hospital bed to the bathroom. And then I climbed 29,000 feet to the top of the world. I didn't just magically make that happen. It's right. Really one step at a time, breaking it down. Going back to your analogy of going up a mountain, you don't start at the base camp and then slowly meander your way up. You establish different camps on the way. You go up with a full backpack, drop some stuff off. You come back down to base camp, rest, recover. You go back up with a full backpack, drop some more stuff off, come back down with an empty backpack, rest, recover. And you shuttle these things all the way up. So you have this ultimate goal that you might have that you might think is completely out of reach, but you have to believe that you're capable of doing it first. But then you establish these little goals, little base camps, little camps along the way to help give you that momentum.
Can you share how you apply everything we're talking about to corporations, to a company, to a team? How does that work when you're doing your, coaching, your training programs and whatnot? What does it look like?
It's first you have to know where you are before you know where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So I work people through what I call a root assessment. Who are you? And a lot of people answer that question by saying, oh, I'm a dad that does this, or a mom who's this. People think stuff defines who they are.
Yeah.
You have to know who you are on the inside first, right? And then I walk them through a core values assessment. And then they can start utilizing their personal core values to get what they want. To basically answer the question, what if you could discover your innermost motivators so that you could accomplish your outermost goals and dreams? That kind of sets the mindset here. And then I walk them through. I actually have a 3-week online mental wellness challenge, or a mindset challenge, that helps people with being mindful. It helps people with fear of limiting beliefs. One of those videos is me holding $100 bill in front of the camera. It's like, let me ask you a question. Would you want this $100 bill? No strings attached, free money. Would you take it? Of course, right? You're going to take the money, free money. And then I crumple it up and ask them the same question. And then I drop it on the floor and step on it. Same question. It's like, why would you want this old, disgusting, who knows what's embedded in the fibers of this $100 bill? Why would you want it? Because it still has value. And a lot of people don't understand that no matter how old they are, no matter what they look like, they still have value.
Yeah.
So you have to get people over those to help them understand who they are, not who other people want them to be, but who they are, to start making decisions based on what they value most. And once you start doing that, you can start seeing the gratitudes, what you're grateful for, as opposed to what you don't have. We talked about it earlier off camera. As opposed to coming from a state of lack, you're now coming from a state of gratitude. And working people through slowly. It's not an instant pop up hill and everything's solved. It doesn't work that way. It's a lifestyle change. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what most people don't understand. I want to help them see where they're lacking and how we can fill those holes. Not with me, but to give you the tools to do it on your own.
Yeah, I love that. I remember what we were talking about. We were talking about empowering people through what they want rather than what we want for them. That's where we left off. And I frame that in a sense when I'm talking to corporations too, about working with and within their employees, right? And really, it's gonna be fun when we talk about more of this stuff, because I have a whole methodology that I do to help the same thing, like help people figure out who they are within and start showing up from within, right? And basically shedding all the false identities that they've created throughout their whole life and believing that they are what they do and all that stuff. So I love that you're doing that, man. I absolutely love it. I think there's so many things we're going to be able to do together, and with Ovationz, with the Epic series that we're doing. Just because we're at time here and stuff, I'd love to know. Interestingly enough, I know that the personal and professional are not separate for you. That's one of the things I love to bring to corporations. So I always love to hear the personal side, what you do in your spare time. Is there family involved? And also, I know you have your 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days coming up. So can you share on all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know, like you said, we're approaching time, but I just need to say a lot of people need to make changes from the inside out. Mm-hmm. What you see out here has no bearing, no influence on how you react. Because you can have the stimulus and the response. Between those two is how you choose to react. And it has to come from inside out. That's where change happens. 100%. Yeah. But as far as the 777 you mentioned, it's interesting because I'm always looking at continuing to push the envelope and continue to either prove that I'm still alive, but also to give back and help other people believe in themselves that more is possible. And in November, I'm going to be running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. Now, we didn't go on Travelocity.com and book American Airlines flight 573 to do that. So there's a lot of involvement. There's a lot of involved there. But I'm taking a group up Kilimanjaro again in about a month and a half. And this will be my 25th trip up the mountain. I utilize it as 2 things. One is a fundraiser for a cancer charity every year. And then another one is actually taking influencers, CEOs, and other business folks out of their comfort zone in the moment to do immersive coaching on the mountain. It's life-changing, life transformational. 7 days on the mountain, and then we do a 4-day safari in the Serengeti. And this will be my 25th trip up the mountain. The average success rate on the mountain is 48%. My groups are at 99% success rate. Wow. So we're doing things differently.
Yeah.
And while I'm on the mountain, I need to plug my wife here. She's born and raised in Puerto Rico. She went up the mountain once. She's like, I'm done. Like, that's enough. So if anybody's wondering, I can't do that. If a Caribbean girl can climb the highest mountain in Africa, you can too, right? So when I'm on the mountain now, she has supported for the past 8 years 100 orphans with food and clothing and everything else for the entire year. So if anyone's looking to give back, find a deeper purpose, Ovationz Accessories. I'm going to plug her real quick.
I love that. We're at time though. I know you might have just done that, but I always like to pass it back to see if there's any final thoughts, anything you want to make sure you share today.
No, I think this is good. This is probably the first step of many. We're going to get to the top together, and you're going to be my Sherpa, and I'm going to be your Sherpa, and we're going to develop a team to help each other succeed.
I have notes on multiple different episodes that we could do, rabbit holes that we can go down with people. So many things here. So guys, this has been another episode of Epic Insights with Ovationz. Again, I'm your host, Aaron Ellis. We have been joined by the amazing empowerment leader, Sean Swarner. Sean, thank you for being here today and sharing your wisdom and your experience and everything.
I appreciate it, Aaron. This has been awesome.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Epic Insights with Ovationz. I hope you found our conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with anyone who could use a little epic insight. Remember, the journey to growth never stops, so keep learning, stay curious, and let's continue building something extraordinary together. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.